From the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the land of flowing bourbon, rolling bluegrass, fast horses, and the small towns between, here is your host, the average American, Will Woods.
We are here with our guest for today, Nema Brewer. She is an organizer for the American Federation of Teachers in Fayette County, heavily involved in the fight for student rights and educator rights within the Commonwealth. And we could talk for days about what you're involved in. You've been sued for your activism, and I know how much you love Kentucky politics, but let's start with this very interesting information coming out about our disgraced former governor Matt Bevin and his wife Glenna Bevin's divorce. Of course, they want it to be sealed. I don't know that it's going to remain that way. His former adopted son is saying that he was basically left for dead in a Jamaican school, and he's had to fight his way out. And his former millionaire adoptive parents apparently don't care about him, and he's filed a restraining order against the former governor.
Yeah, I mean, right? Like, first of all, thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to having a discussion with you about a lot of things recently, but this has probably been one of the most vindicating thing that I have felt in a long time. And I hate to say that because I feel so terrible for what this young man has said he's gone through. But when we started the fight against Matt Bevin in 2017, it was like you could almost feel in the air that this was not somebody, there was just something not right about him. Like there was something off. And it was beyond just his ugly politics. And his nasty rhetoric. There was just something not right. And, we kept telling people, this is who this guy is. And he showed us who he was now, William. Now, remember, he showed us completely. He called teachers everything but milk cows, blamed them for everything under the sun, would take their emails and put them on press conferences. Remember whenever he was doing that live on
wait, here, I got a good one for you. Listen to this.
The child was physically harmed or ingested poison because they were home alone, because a single parent didn't have any money to take care of.
Remember when he brought all that up and said that the kids were sexually assaulted because, the teachers weren't at school, they were at the Capitol? For a guy who cared so much about kids and whether they were home alone or being assaulted, he leaves his kid to be assaulted and harmed. Explain that.
In another country, and then will not come back and get him.
Well, he did allegedly offer to send him to Ethiopia.
Right, which he is not from. He is an American. Like, that's the thing. Like, these are the things, like, when I don't try to get in anybody's parenting business because I'm a parent and I know it's hard enough. But the thing is that how you adopt a child, bring a child into your home, raise a child, and then say, well, I'll drop you back off in Ethiopia where I picked you up, where you have probably very little recollection of anything, and you actually have more family and friends here in Kentucky. See, that's the thing that's unconscionable to me, but it proves a point. People can be shiny and polished and slap their knee and pretend like they're this person or they're that person, but Kentuckians know better. And I believe by Bevin getting beat, it was a sign of people saying, you know what, we know better. We're not falling for this again. We fell for it before, but you don't have to pee on us and tell us it's raining, but once before us to figure it out. That's whenever I knew, and I've always known Kentucky's different, but that's when I knew, because we squeaked by with the hair of our chinny chins. But I'm going to tell you, that was a vote that was the public educators and the people who care about public education in this state. They finally united, put aside party lines, and said, enough's enough. We're not going to be belittled. We're Kentuckians, by God, and you're not.
So I remember vividly he was going around trying to say that he had the vote of the educators, which he clearly did not. And I want you to listen to this. it's a clip from when he was in the West End of Louisville trying to make himself look good. And this is something he said about the students of West Louisville. Take a listen to this.
Nativity Academy. I'm about to go in and meet the members of the West Louisville Chess Club. Not something you necessarily would have thought of when you think of this section of town.
How do you even make sense of that?
Well, I mean, of course, why would the west side of, I mean, you see, this is just the kind of doofus this guy was. Let me tell you, this guy was a walking PR dream for opposition against him. And the great thing about what happened with the 120 movement is that every time he would say something, somebody would hear it in one of the 120 counties. And we stayed on him. We made him own his own mouth. And I think that was something that we just let up on like a dog with a bone, and we refused to let him change that narrative. And he couldn't, because if you hear him, he was never one of us, man. He came in here and grifted his way in, and I hope he grifts his way out. If there's any way if we could throw him out of the state of Kentucky, he doesn't deserve to claim any sort of ties to Kentucky. Period.
We had
in my opinion.
Not really a debate, but a more of a panel discussion in Oldham County. It was myself, the governor, former representative, now imprisoned Robert Goforth, and Ike Lawrence, who, if you remember, wanted to just really focus on beer at college events. But
that's right.
The governor came up, and he showed up in jeans, of course, and he just shook my hand as he was doing everybody else. He goes, "Hey, good job." And I'm thinking, you were the last person that needs to tell anybody what a good job they're doing. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at this, the stuff that's come out in the past week, and then I look at the fact that, he was basically insinuating that African American students really shouldn't be playing chess, or that's not what you think of when you think of African American students.
Right, because God forbid, when you think of the West Side, what do you think? I mean, it's just oozing with this like racism and this misogyny and xenophobia. I mean, it just oozes.
But then you listen to that clip about the kids being sexually assaulted because of the teachers, and then we find out that his wife has said that he comes in the home in the middle of the night and follows her into the bedroom when she's already asleep, and Jonah, the child, now has this restraining order. I mean, the word that comes to mind with this guy is just creepy.
Absolutely. And again, what everybody in this state owes a debt of gratitude to the educators and the public education supporters, retirees, all of them that hit the ground running. Because I'm telling you, if this man would have been our governor beyond that one term, I don't know how we would have made it through COVID. And it was bumpy, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I can't even begin to imagine how many more lives would have been lost in this state. I can't begin to imagine how much just voodoo stuff would have been going on. I mean, it was getting weird when he kind of brought in this whole kind of weird Republican vibe. And I'm not trying to slam the Republicans by any means, but, he kind of was like the newcomer of that kind of weird hybrid. Like, we're not really sure. Is he a constitutionalist? What's going on here? Libertarian? Like, who is this, right? He was kind of one of those. He was one of those people that was a little early before his time, right?
He was an early Trump. He had a lot of money. He rode into town, thought he was going to take over. He didn't, because he didn't win the Senate fight against McConnell. And then, he got ran out kind of like Trump did at the end of his first term.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so it was just kind of like, he was the test pattern, right? Like, let's tweak it and get it going somewhere else. But it's just one of those things. I don't think that Kentucky, I'm sure we'd seen the likes of him before, but we hadn't really seen the likes of somebody who was just so blatantly gross in his communication with his constituents, at least not that I can remember. And, it was just this whole different, side. And then when all that Jeff Hoover stuff went down,
Right.
and, you had all this, I mean, you could just tell that things were changing and probably not for the better.
You mentioned the word
in
earlier. You said vindication, and I remember this because I remember seeing you down there. I remember seeing you on the television everywhere, and we agree on a lot of things. There are some things we don't agree on, and that's fine.
Right.
But you said vindication, and I remember sitting in the offices of several news directors around the state. We knew we had these claims and alleged police reports of abuse by Robert Goforth and alleged crimes, and we knew all the backstory on Bevan, and nobody would run with it. And they even canceled debates because Bevan didn't want to show up. And when you said vindication, I thought, you know what? That's right, because the Republican Party doesn't stand a chance of getting the governor's office back. And to all those people who would not report what was valid information, now it's all out there.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. And it's like, and I wonder sometimes, like when you're a part of, when you buy into that mentality, right? Which is the system mentality of, well, so-and-so can't win because he doesn't have money. So-and-so can't win. It's like a fulfilling prophecy almost, And so because that's the narrative, then we just shut out all the other voices because they couldn't possibly win. And so, I love a good underdog.
Right. Well, it's like neither of us make any money off this, but the real part is there are days when, it would be nice to just pack it all up and take a vacation or move to another state. But the reason that I got into all this mess was because I knew that the children of the state were going to face some serious consequences, and I know you felt the same way. And I mean, you've even been sued for your activism. Can you explain how that came about? I don't want you to violate, anything that you can't talk about, but why did you get sued, Nema Brewer?
Well, I think it's because I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's because when you put yourself out there, you make yourself an easy target. And let me tell you something, I'm a great villain, right? Like I'm a great villain in any story. But I think a lot of it is because it was politically a good move to make to try to silence me.
Right.
As we're trying to build something different here in Fayette County and across the state with AFT. I think it was an attempt to silence me. I think it was an attempt to silence a lot of people that were in that movement. And I think that ultimately, this is something that I was surprised by because of the timeline and the allegations, and how everything went down, like in the evidence, that they have filed. Some of those things were just blatantly not true, and I might be crazy, but I remember, right? And so like some of the things you could tell that, it's probably politically motivated, I believe. Right. I believe that there's a lot of people who say they believe in First Amendment rights and they honestly don't.
Well, when it works
because,
for them.
Well, that's exactly right. And, I always say the Constitution is not a buffet. You don't get to pick and choose which amendment you agree with and then throw out the rest of them. That's not how it works.
So I got to ask you this, because at one point I was an employee of a school district. I was a member of KEA. And there is this palpable tension across the Commonwealth that it seems that KEA and AFT are just at each other's throats all the time. And from my view looking in and from the views of a lot of other Kentuckians, it seems to be, and you may not be able to respond to this, but it seems to be that KEA is the aggressor in the situation. And in my view, the goal of both organizations should be to represent students and educators instead of creating this hostility that educators and students are now involved in. Can you explain to us what is going on there?
Well, I can tell you how I see and how I feel about it. First of all, I think it's really unfortunate. When we decided to separate and leave, this was right after new hires got thrown under the bus, and they went into a completely different pension system. And at the time, social educators don't have access to Social Security of their spouses, through the WEP stuff. So we were highly concerned for our new folks coming in. Plus, we also had always said no new tiers, no new, we're not throwing new hires under the bus. So that was a core value.
But let me stop you right there. They still paid into Social Security, correct?
Yes. So what? Well, no, they would not be. The new hires would not have Social Security. They would just have this hybrid pension system.
Okay.
That was the issue. Now with the WEP, that's gone. That's a different. Now it's a different worm, a different time. But at that time, that was kind of a no. We can deal with differences on approach to strategies, and tactics for political things. We can disagree on those things, but we fundamentally could not agree that new hires should be thrown under the bus. Right. And so it was just a bridge too far. And so we left. And I remember at the time texting the president at the time of KEA and saying, please just let us go. Right? Like, just let us go. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. We can work together on some things, but we're not going to be able to agree on other things. Right. And so, unfortunately, that's not been the case. So it's been ugly at times. It's been hostile at times. It's been quiet at times. But ultimately, what's the saddest part to me is that we're not the same. We're different. There's space for both groups. And our mission is different. Our mission is a collective bargaining agreement in every county and every district that wants to seek one. They should be able to work towards that. And we are encouraging them to do so. Right now, it's the only way that we can put some protections in during this crisis in public education. It's the only way left. We don't have a way forward in Frankfort right now. We just simply don't, William. And we can negotiate with Frankfort. We can talk to Frankfort. We can talk to electeds about bills. But ultimately, if we don't protect Fayette County and our marginalized kids and families, then we are doing everybody a disservice.
And let me understand this correctly, because, and I will give KEA their credit, as I'm sure you will. Yeah. There are plenty of districts that do have those collective bargaining agreements. The educators do have their protections, but Fayette County, to my understanding, does not have a collective bargaining agreement.
That is correct. That's correct. That's correct. And there's something fundamentally wrong about that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of AFT Fayette.
Why don't they have that agreement?
Well, they had one and they lost it about 35 years ago. And it's never, I don't know if somebody's taken a backroom deal and said, we'll never try to, bargain here again. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. This was a question that I asked repeatedly when I was a member of KEA. And, I don't know. I don't know why people do what they do or why they make those decisions. But this is something that we should be doing and we should be talking about in public education, because the best example I can give of this, like them or not, Chicago Teachers Union has the support of that community because they are involved in that community at the most basic, intimate level with relationships, through community partnerships, through all these things, coalitions. That is the model. We want to get back to our community. We want to take it hyper local to protect those that we can protect. Fayette County has one of the largest budgets in this state. Fayette County Public Schools does. And they have the bigger budget than the city of Lexington. And we can afford to give our kids free and reduced lunch in case they're cut at the national level. We should be able to do that. Lincoln County can do it. We can do it.
So it seems that there's been a lot of negativity around the Fayette County School District in recent months. We don't have to go into the individuals involved in that because clearly nobody wants to be sued. I have several friends, people I went to high school and college with who are educators in the Fayette County School District who love what they do. It seems that I've witnessed many educators create programs themselves, without getting the overtime pay or without getting a stipend, just to help their students because they know that the students and families need the help. What do you see on the ground, and can you tell me how many Fayette County educators are members of AFT? Is that something that's on top of your head?
Well, I can't just give you the numbers. I will say this. We believe that we are either neck and neck with our competitors, or we have more members. Our focus isn't really as much on membership right now as it is on securing a collective bargaining agreement. So, we do both. We do member relations and services and benefits and all that stuff. But we also have focused heavily on, would you support a collective bargaining agreement, right? Because we had to come in and really educate our community again about what a CBA is, what it looks like, And so that was kind of weird. And I'm going to tell you, we've got teachers who come here from Ohio who don't even realize that they're not working under a collective bargaining agreement. I met with one of them this week. And she was shocked. She was like, wait a minute, the contract I signed wasn't bargained with and I was like, no, ma'am. And anytime you're asking people to give up any sort of power, perceived power or power, you're going to receive a pushback.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I've said this, politics is politics, right? It's politics. It's not personal. But some of the things that have been done to try to silence AFT or to prevent AFT from growing has become personal for some people. And that's whenever I'm like this, okay, I'm not going to play this game because this is no longer political. This is personal for you. It's not personal for me. And so I can't, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to play that game.
But these teachers,
because
they could just walk in and say, hey, you know what? We don't need you anymore. You got to go.
Right.
And it's all political. They spend millions and millions of dollars a year on expenditures that are not necessary. It just seems to me like Fayette County in particular has a problem with authority and having oversight.
Well, I think that, again, anytime that you give, anytime the same people have had this distribution of power within a system over so many years, then it becomes kind of like they're all codependent on each other, right?
Right.
So what you've got is you've got a codependency. And then you also have a mentality with teachers that if they have tenure, they'll be okay. Well, we're seeing that's not the case in Berea right now. I know a guy, Chris Priest, or at least know the name.
Correct.
Chris just got told he was laid off. He's a science teacher for 10 years. Tenure does not save your job. Tenure just gives you the right to due process. And, and so people don't understand that if they don't want you there, they're going to get rid of you, tenure or not, because what they do is they just get rid of the position.
Well,
and see, that's the thing. And so there's a false narrative there, I believe, that we don't need real unions that are independent thinking and independent of the district and can say to the district, we disagree. See, that's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of,
even under those bargaining. No, you're fine. Those bargaining agreements. We can kind of transition to this topic, which kind of feeds right in from this. We look at the increased level of student suicides in Northern Kentucky right now.
Oh my God!
Though the focus is there, people forget it's not just Northern Kentucky. Just this week, we had one in Gallatin County. I know Warren County schools have dealt with it. LaRue County schools have dealt with it. This isn't something new, But when you have
No.
such a high concentration of it in one district, and you only find out about it because a parent is brave enough
Yeah.
and emotionally available enough to speak out about it, then we find another problem. And the calls and private messages that I've received from educators and administrators in the districts are, we want to speak, but if we do, we'll lose our jobs. And they're not trying
Well,
to
see, and that's
reveal any
no.
information covered by HIPAA. You can talk about something and not reveal a name or specifics that would allow somebody to know who the student is. Anybody who comes to me and says, "Well, we really can't talk about it because of privacy laws," that's a load of bull, because you can talk about the event without talking about the person affected by it.
Well, and I think the biggest issue, and my heart breaks for the families, for the teachers, for the students that were in class with these kids. Um, you know, this is the thing, and we've heard it repeatedly since COVID. You know, there are a lot of kids who are really struggling, my child included, right?
Correct.
And so there is this mentality that fix it teacher is what I like to call it. You know, we don't know what to do as a society with what's going on with our kids and mental health issues and bullying and all this stuff with AI and cyber stuff. We don't know how to fix it. So you fix it, teacher. And so what we do is we just push it. We keep pushing it to somebody. And traditionally, it's always been the public schools that have picked up and care and bridge the divide in funding or whatever else that the kids need. You know, people don't understand in this state. We have friskies who buy glasses, teachers who buy glasses for kids so they can do their schoolwork. This goes on daily. People don't understand that it's a different time from when it was when we were in school. And it's a different society, and adults are having a hard enough time coping. And that's the thing. I think we're all falling apart. I think our kids know we are. I think we're not giving our children a bright idea of what the future can be whenever they can't buy a home. You know,
not just that.
when they
You
can't
talk
afford
about
college. There's a lot of stuff, brother. And the fact that we are having conversations about petty political shit,
Right.
you can beat me on that.
Oh, we're good.
But because this is what frustrates me daily, because we can't get out of the way of ourselves and our own egos, then our kids continue to suffer. Our kids are the ones that lose. It's not going to be, you can do what you want to Nema Brewer. You can sue me 1,000 times. You can do all these things. But the fact of the matter is that you're not doing one thing to help a kid in this state by doing that.
Well, and
Not
there's
one.
the added fact that we are losing quality educators
Yes.
because, one, they can't take the stress of watching, these events, these
Yes.
student suicides or students on drugs. I know several teachers who have retired the day they are up for retirement, or they've
Absolutely.
new educators, these educators who are 30 and below, who do 2 to 3 years of classroom work,
Oh,
and
I
they
can't
are so
imagine.
distraught. I mean, I know educators that have taught for 3 years and then they've went and become emergency room nurses or physicians because that's less stressful. We're not providing assistance to the educators and staff members as well as we should either. I mean, we have to take care of the students, but we got to take care of everybody.
Well, we don't do a good job of we do not do a good job of mental health in this country anyway, but we do a real disservice to our teachers because what they have traditionally heard and what is still being told. Well, if you care about the kids, you'll do it. So we just keep expecting more and more and more. And what happens is when they say, can I get compensated for it? Then all of a sudden a big stop sign flies up in their face and they thought they would do it because they cared about the kids. Right. So then they get this big guilt trip laid on them. I mean, I've been in meetings where administrators have said that, and it runs all over me. But traditionally, teachers are women. There's no difference, I've said time and time again, between the nurses and the teachers as a profession. They have been overworked, underpaid. underappreciated,
Right.
and because they've taken it, right, because this is what they've accepted as the job, that it just continues to spiral. I always say, you can. Why would you eat the dog turd if you had a bologna sandwich on another plate? Why would you select the dog turd? You know, and so, but some people would rather just go ahead and ingest the dog turd. See, because then they're not seen as being, aggressive or a problem or,
Right.
all these other things.
It's
Whenever you
sad that
you should be compensated.
it's gotten to the point where an educator would rather retire or leave and start an entirely new career from the bottom up than deal with the situations that they're currently facing. And that's in every school district in the Commonwealth, not just one.
Absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right.
No, I could talk about, yeah.
Oh, we could talk for days,
gears?
but we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. All right, we are back with Nema Brewer. She is with the American Federation of Teachers for Fayette County, also a former district employee for 18 years. We have got to discuss a few things, but I want to ask you about this upcoming battle for Mitch McConnell's Senate seat. Do you think, yeah, it's going to be a battle. Do you think that Rocky is going to run? Is there a chance?
I'm not sure. I think that Rocky would be a good fit for the state. I think that, he's got his strengths. I think he's got his weaknesses as well. I think that the way to victory for in a statewide race, I think Andy Beshear has shown how you can thread that needle. I think that Rocky plays well in all those areas. And it's always good to wake up the 606. And so I think Rocky plays really, really well in those areas too. I wonder if, some of his stances on abortion in the past might play not so well with suburban women. And we know those votes are incredibly important, especially in Warren County, Fayette County, Jefferson County, Boone County, Kenton. Those are huge voting blocks. That's the one thing that I'd like to hear more about from him, and if he's changed any opinions on that. But his opinion on it, I think that it's okay for people to change opinions on things because we're all humans. And if you don't continually educate yourself and talk to people who don't think just like you, like William, you and I have a deep respect for one another. And the reason why is because I value what you have to say. I learn from you. You learn from me. That's how actual relationships work in the real world, not on social media.
Right.
And, for me, I think that, I'm all about listening to what people have to say, why they've changed, why they've grown. God help me. I think you've grown a lot in the last several years. I have too, I would hope. And, I just think that I think it would be a good fit if he wants to do it, because it's going to be a dogfight. The real interesting thing is going to be on the Republican side.
Well, Rocky is not what I would consider a perennial candidate. Usually, he's
Right.
kind of below the fray because everybody likes Rocky no matter what. My
Right.
concern about the Senate race here, the Governor Beshear said he isn't going to run. We're watching this, and it's pretty clear that he's going to run for president. How do you see that road for the governor getting to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Let me tell you, Andy is one of the best at what he does. Andy is one of those rare electeds, politicians who threads that needle between, just being everybody's buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's buddy,
Yet
and
still
then
getting the
being
job
able
done.
to. But still getting the job done and making the hard calls. And I think ultimately people just want somebody to take responsibility and to make the hard calls, right? And then be willing to take the heat for those. And, Andy has done that. I know that I don't agree with him on everything. I don't agree with anybody on everything. But the thing is that he has this ability to communicate across party divide, and that is so rare. right now in this country. That, I think Kentucky's going to hurt him a little bit because, there are a lot of people who associate us with the last, however many decades of Mitch McConnell's reign. I think that, there are people that don't understand Kentucky, but I think there's people that are willing to give him a chance. Hell, they gave a little guy from Arkansas a chance, Bill Clinton. And, I've changed my opinion on Bill Clinton on a lot of things, but I'm going to tell you, he got in office and nobody thought a little guy from Arkansas could do it.
Well, I look at him, and one of the things that I feel, professionally speaking, is I truly feel that he dodged a bullet by not being selected as the former vice president's running mate. I think that would have ended any chance he had at the presidency. Do you think he dodged that bullet by not being selected?
Well, I think anytime you're running as the second, then you're also tied to whatever, like it or not. And this hurt Kamala a little bit, being tied back to Joe Biden's policies, right? And the way that he did things. So I think anytime you're running in a second spot, right, where you also have to maybe bend what how you normally would run, I think it puts you at risk because now you're tied to somebody who you might not want to be completely tied with only because of who they're tied with. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things where I think that it would have been great to have had him in the vice presidency. It would have been amazing. But I also think it would have been a little bit harder of a row for him to be able to walk that line that he's been so great at walking, which is being a compassionate leader, one who might make mistakes, but is going to shoot to you straight. And, and I think that he's built that level of trust with Kentuckians. Now, the question is, can he build that same level of trust with everybody else? That's to be seen.
I want to continue that discussion and talk about Andy Barr's chances of picking up the Senate seat, but our Lieutenant Governor, Cherlynn Coleman, she's going to have to make a decision on whether or not she is going to run for governor. I have some concerns about her visibility. I know that she's gone through a lot recently with some health issues, and I know that she's a great advocate for public education. My concern is that she is not visible enough to the eastern part of the state, and if they don't act soon enough, she will have a very difficult time ascending to that role. Do you feel there's going to be another Democrat who's going to try to take the governor's seat? And do you really think that there's going to be a governor or a Republican who's going to run for governor that hasn't already ran who actually stands a chance? Because I truly don't.
I think in politics there's always a chance, right? Like, I mean, I go back to Representative Cherlynn Stevenson's race in 2018, where she was one of three in a primary and had to go to Louisville to fundraise because nobody in Lexington would touch her with a 10-foot pole. Because they didn't know her. There was already an heir apparent, right? Which is what we do. We do that way too much in politics.
I hate that.
I do too. I do too.
Oh, it's your turn now. Let's.
It's your turn now, and we do that, and we do that in a lot of the systems across the state. We've got to stop doing that,
But don't you think they would be a great team? Coleman, Stevenson, Coleman.
Oh, listen. I don't know if the state's ready for two women at the top of the ticket, but I would vote for that ticket tomorrow and have no reservations. I think the thing about Cherlynn Coleman is she does have that unique ability, like Andy, to transcend and really talk to people like she's one of them, because she is one of them. And I'm friends with Cherlynn. Cherlynn was in the 120 back in the day, and Cherlynn's been fighting for public education, in the political area since at least 2016 when she ran against Kim King. But the thing is that I think when people get to know Cherlynn, they're going to love Cherlynn. And I mean, I'm all in for Cherlynn for governor. If anybody else wants to run, I'm sorry. I mean, I hope we can still be friends, but I'm going to pull for Cherlynn.
If those two would link up and just decide who wants to be at the top of the ticket and start crisscrossing the Commonwealth, I'd quit everything I have right now and just run the campaign for free, because nobody would have a chance against them.
Well, they are both unique again, like Andy, that really are just regular people that have had regular people problems, you know? I mean, Cher will tell you about the medical debt that they incurred, you know, whenever her husband was in between jobs, you know, we're talking $90,000. He had you know, a medical emergency. And, you know, so they know what it's like, you know, to be, and they've not forgot. See, that's the one thing, and I'll say this: the one thing that I think separates an elected from a politician and from a representative or a senator is the way in which they connect with people and understand why they ran to begin with. You know, we used to always have I used to always have conversations with sheriffs. You'll know when it's time to quit when you become what you ran against. Right.
Exactly.
And so for me, that's always been my guiding point. Like when I go so low that I threaten public education in this state, because I can't get along with somebody, it's time to get out, because it's not about Nema. And that's the other thing with Cher and Jacqueline. They truly are public servants at heart.
Right.
And they've seen some things. So, you know, is Kentucky ready for two women at the top? I'd like to say yes. I'd still say we're a few years off from it. And as far as the Republicans in the race, you know, I never say never. You know, we do a lot of weird things in Kentucky. You know, we go by Trump bigly, and then we also go against the public school, you know, constitutional amendment.
Kentucky's a weird state at the ballot box. It truly is.
We are. It's hard to gauge, and so, you know, it's one of those things where it's like it's going to depend on who runs, the message that they hit on that resonates. But, you know, what we have to understand, what politicians have to understand, and what we have to understand as voters is this: they work for us. We can no longer allow these two parties to continue to fight each other when we are all going down in flames. We are all going down. Unless you have money coming out your ears, we're going down, baby, one way or the other. And, you know, we keep setting up, like you were talking about these other laws. You know, now we're letting kids get their driver permit at 15 again or something. And I'm like, you know why? Because we got to get them kids working. There is no time to be a kid anymore.
No.
You know, there is no time to do all these things. We're fast tracking people. Workers are just capital.
And wait until you see those insurance premiums.
Well, that's exactly what I said. I said, let me see my insurance bill go up, because I'm going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, though, is that.
But again, this is a parental choice. This is just like social media, the cell phones, the Facebook, the Snapchat.
Yeah.
Just because you can get a license at 15 doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. That's well, right. And I know if I would have been on the road at 15, which we were back in the day, you know, you could get your permit and be 16 the minute they would shoot us right out the door.
Right.
You know, and I'm pretty sure that was not the smartest thing, you know. but the thing is that what any candidate in the state of Kentucky has to do right now is be authentic.
Right.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to own the mistakes. Don't hide. Don't lie. Don't blatantly lie. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. We are craving genuine and authentic and people who can relate. And we're just not seeing that. So the Republican Party
state won't put those folks on the air.
Well, no, because again, we go back to the system.
Or me on the air, because we're just speaking the truth.
That's right. And so with no money backing us, right?
Right, except our own,
right. And so the thing is that we have to decide, you know, because we keep seeing these people, right? We keep seeing these people that are being exposed, like Matt Bevin, right? For who he really is as a person. Do we really want people like that representing us? You know, and so I think that's what we need to start asking ourselves. Do we want these people to represent us? I don't run for office because I want to be able to say whatever I want to say and not owe anybody at the end of the day.
Right, right.
You know, I don't. I mean, that's just the facts.
Well, talk about writing a fine line. Andy Barr, who
Oh, yeah.
wants that Senate seat. He wants McConnell's seat. Came out today. He supports Doge. He supports tariffs. And he also supports the National Institutes of Health because he feels we get a good return on that investment. Is he not riding the biggest political line you have ever seen?
I'll be honest. I'm really disappointed in Andy Barr. I don't know why I ever get my hopes up about electeds anymore, but I will say that I have seen him go from someone who literally stood on a picket line with Cecil Roberts of the United Mine Workers in D.C. to help fight for miner pensions. I saw that man there. He's gone from that to I don't even know who he is. I'm not even sure what he stands for anymore. And see, that's the problem. Who is Andy Barr? That's how I'd run this campaign against him, whoever's running against him. My whole question would be, who is Andy Barr?
Do you think that just falls back to it's Trump territory? Because what we have seen in the majority of these elections and these race outcomes, if it's Trump territory and you're a Democrat, just forget it.
Right. You're already at least 35% percentage points in the hole, depending on what district you're in.
Right.
But the problem is that I need my fellow brethren and sisters on the Republican side to be a little bit more discerning with who they put in office. Because when Andy Barr, at least one point, was not one of these people that was just always whiffing and waffing and, didn't seem to have any sort of like direction on where he was going except just whatever he was told. And now it's like he's turning into a Trumper. And, he might think that all Kentucky wants that and loves that and all these things. But, I think he has a real problem getting through a primary if somebody that's far right gets in this congressional race. He has a problem. He has to get through his primary.
Well, he's got to fight Daniel Cameron, and he's going to have a lot of money to go against Barr. How do you see that working out for Barr and Cameron?
I think there's just enough racism left in Kentucky that will keep Daniel Cameron out of statewide office beyond where he's already served.
I think the Breonna Taylor case really did him in. I think he really botched it.
I think too that's that showed, I think, in the race, the governor race, his involvement with Breonna Taylor. I think that there's, let me just be honest. I have family members probably that would sit there and tell you they were voting for him. They couldn't wait. And then when they got in the voting booth, they didn't vote for anybody because they just couldn't stand to vote for a black man. And I hate to say that, but that is the reality still.
Yeah,
in a lot of our smaller communities. Real. It is. And I think it's good for at least 3% to put him in the hole, at least. And that's probably being, kind.
I don't think it's just a product of small communities either. I think it's a product of our wealthier communities too.
Well, absolutely. So I do think that, but the other question that I would ask if I was a Republican and I was looking at this primary, I would ask, who the hell is Cameron? Daniel Cameron. This is a man who stood up there and swore how much he loved teachers and all this other stuff, and we all know that didn't fly.
Or he says he's an attorney, but he's never tried a case.
Right. There are all these things, and I'm like, all he's done is run for office. Like, what has he done? Like, what is his, that should still matter, I think.
We look at Kentucky specifically, and I want to hit this because we've got about 14, 15 minutes left here.
Okay.
Kentucky, this session of the legislative body has passed some very interesting bills, and some didn't make it. Mm-hmm. One of the ones that I've focused on here is House Bill 695, says that if you receive Medicaid, if you're an able-bodied individual, you have to work to receive that Medicaid. Now, one of the things that struck me about this is, one, how are we going to define able-bodied? And two, do these individuals who are so-called leaders and experts, do they not understand that there are folks on Medicaid who work every day?
No, they don't. And that's the saddest part. But I also think that they do. Like, I saw the most ridiculous thing that Robert Stivers he says some ridiculous things, but he's good for at least two or three. every session. And the latest on this is he was like, well, he was at his Pizza Hut down there in Clay County, and they didn't have the dining room open because they don't have enough employees. And that's why he thinks people just need to get to work. And I started thinking to myself, what world do you live in? Like, what country do you, like, how do you,
what country club do they live in, really? That's the question.
Here's the question. Why is it always the fault of the lazy worker, non-worker, and never the fault of the employer for not providing benefits that provide a living wage, benefits, health care? Like, that's the bigger question. Why are we not holding Pizza Hut accountable and saying, if you don't pay these people, then they're going to stay on Medicaid because you don't even provide enough to get them above the poverty line? That's where we should be asking.
You may be shocked. You may not, because you've seen everything I've seen. My team reached out to several leaders, including Mr. Stivers, asking for a response to the increased rates of student suicide in Kentucky public schools. I received responses that would blow your mind. And from those individuals, I received responses, please email the Republican Party or the Democratic Party for responses to these questions. Okay, I'm not asking you as a candidate. I want your response as an elected official, not your candidate's response. I want your response as an official. You don't get to turn that button off. I'm asking you a question, and they won't respond.
No. Well, it's because they don't have an answer. They're trying to hide something, or they simply don't know. Let's be very clear. A lot of the legislation that you see coming through Kentucky is carbon copied, honey, from some think tank by unelected bureaucrats pushing beans and counting beans. A lot of these are not things that Kentuckians genuinely want. And this is a perfect segue into Savannah Maddox's bill. Perfect example. Let me tell you something, brother. When you started talking about your experience with getting an ID, a license, a real ID, and I was like, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. A driver's test, getting your kid a permit, let me tell you, it is a logistical nightmare. I don't know how people who work for a living every single day can even get their kid in and out of these places without having to take at least 2 personal days. I mean, I'm just being honest. It is a mess. And Savannah Maddox, and I've given her hell a lot, filed a bill that would finally put some of this back into the hands of the clerks.
Right. Regular licenses, yes.
That's right. And it's not going to get heard.
No.
And I would tell you now, if Jacqueline Coleman tomorrow said she was running to get rid of those regional offices, she'd win by, she'd lay 30 on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
She would. She'd make me 70-30.
Well, it goes to show you
she
how
might even lay 40 on them.
Savannah has lost her power within the House.
Well, and I think that this is what we're seeing again. But this is a good bill, and this is the problem with Frankfurt. Because she is on the naughty list, right? I would say she's on double secret probation, right?
Absolutely.
She might even be at triple secret probation. Her, Callaway, that little pod, Felicia, those folks are on
TJ
like
now.
double secret probation. TJ now, that's right. So, but here's the thing.
It was a good bill.
It's a good bill.
But
it's a good bill, and it would help Kentuckians.
Most Kentuckians don't understand the reason that bill didn't get heard, and it's one name.
Yes. Yeah, it's because who was attached to it.
Well, no, not even that.
Yeah.
It's for the bill to be heard, it has to be called.
That's right.
So tell everybody who that person is, and that's who you blame.
That's right. And see, and the reason why that is because they're on double secret probation for stuff that we may or may not know about, that has nothing to do with the welfare of Kentucky.
I know a lot of it.
Right, but
the average citizen doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. But it does nothing to move Kentucky forward in any kind of legitimate way.
No.
And that's why I would really love to see people like you and I who don't always agree on everything be able to sit down, have a conversation just like this, be a pleasant conversation, and just put down all the personality things and get to work for the people in this state.
Well,
that's really what somebody wants.
That's what my goal was years back when we were
Yeah.
down there, doing our thing. I personally think that the majority of bills that Representative Maddox has introduced are horrible. I will give her credit on the good bill she's introduced. I would do the same thing to T.J. Roberts if he actually introduced a good bill. I would have either one of them or any Democrat who I disagree with on to speak with them in a civil tone. But the minute you start being condescending toward me and thinking that you're somehow better because you've wiggled your way into a position because you were groomed by some elected official for several years, is the minute I'm going to turn off the recorder and tell you to go back to Frankfurt or somewhere else.
And that's the thing. And I think that, I think that's another reason why I just don't fit into the whole political scheme of things, is because I refuse to give you respect just because you won an office. And because, a good friend of mine, Regina Huff, in the House of Representatives, I think she served 12 years. Regina and I are two totally different people. We have absolutely nothing in common except we both like to laugh. We're both from the mountains, and that's good enough, right? And so she's a dear friend of mine and has been. And, she always would say to me, Nema, she said, you don't have to be anybody special to win office. I'm from Idiot's Branch, for God's sakes, and I'm sitting right here. And she said, it doesn't mean that you're special. Anybody can win a race if they have enough money, if they have enough this, if they have enough that. And when she told me that, that's how I feel. So Regina and I have a lot of the same feelings about how you treat people and how you don't treat people, and I think that might be an Eastern Kentucky thing where we kind of always got that chip on our shoulder, but still, she's right. And what we do is we put these folks up on a pedestal, and then we allow ourselves to be disappointed time and time again because we forget these people are human beings and they're selling something. And what they're selling is they're trying to sell themselves.
Pedestal because of the money that they have or that they can get.
That's right. That's right. And
has always been, since my past experience running for office, we are a state. We are not national. You don't need to have a certain amount of money raised in a campaign to join a debate for the office you're running for. I can understand at the national level there needs to be some sort of guideline. We can't have somebody who hasn't raised $20 running for president. But at the state level, when you only have 4 people running in a primary, it's not that difficult to put a 4th microphone on the stage. This is censorship at the highest level. KET.
Well, but you think but you know who runs them. But you know who runs them.
Absolutely.
I mean, so that's the thing. And so, you're again, and this is what I think's been the hardest part about this journey that I've been on. The hardest part is seeing exactly, I sometimes will wake up and question what my role and responsibility was in perpetuating a system that didn't need to be perpetuated anymore, but that needed to change and that did not want to change. And I just I found myself really disillusioned. But I have a friend of mine who said, Nema, the problem with you is that you're an idealist. And Frankfurt is set up to drive people like you crazy. And
not only that, you and I agree.
So that's the same to you, brother.
Is you and I can walk in a room, and before I go up and talk to the CEO that I'm meeting with, I'm going to talk to the assistant. I'm going to talk to the person standing outside the door.
That's right.
I don't see a difference in somebody because they have more money. I don't like glad handing. I don't like the fundraising. No. I'd rather go talk to people door to door than go sit at a fundraiser with, a crappy meal just so somebody is going to write me a $2,500 check. I can't stand that part of it.
And that's the thing. But it's one of those things. And again, I go back to, but what will it cost your soul? Right?
A lot.
And so, that's right. And so for me, I hope, and you can, I know every fault Nema Brewer has. I know it's been all over the internet, it's probably in a lawsuit. So, you're not telling me anything about me that I don't know. But my thing is this: I just want people to do the right thing, not just try to be right all the time.
Right.
I want people to own their own mistakes, apologize, and try to grow and move on, because I want there to be more grace. I want there to be more civil conversations like you and I are having.
Right.
I want Kentuckians to have the best. I'm a Kentuckian. I'll die a Kentuckian. And, it's one of those things that we can do this. We just got to get over ourselves, brother. That's the biggest thing. We just got to get over ourselves. And we got to find people that we believe in for the right reasons, not because they raise the most money, not because they do this. It can be done, but it takes work, a lot more work than one person can do.
And there's a lot of sacrifice to it. I know people don't understand that, but there is. We
right.
are
There
talking
absolutely is.
with Nema Brewer from the American Federation of Teachers. We will be right back to close the segment. All right, we're back. Going to finish up the show here today with Nema Brewer from the American Federation of Teachers. I've got to ask you this. It hits a little close to home, and I don't know how honored you are by this, but I've heard a rumor, a vicious rumor, that you are a member of Massey's Nasties. Are you and Savannah that close?
I'll tell you something that people would probably think was crazy, but to a certain degree, I kind of respect Savannah Maddox. She is what she is. That's exactly what you're seeing is exactly what you're getting.
I
right?
agree.
I'm sure it wasn't easy for her rolling up into the house. I'm sure it's still not easy for her rolling up in the house. She does it every day and puts her lipstick on. And, and I'll tell you, I have a respect for somebody who believes in what they believe in.
I agree.
I might not agree with her on anything, except that great bill that she had out. But I will say that. But I will say this: I at least respect her for being in the fight, being in the game, and I can respect her as a person just because of that, right? Like I can respect her woman to woman because she's not a wallflower.
No.
And I can respect people who are not wallflowers that have some sense. And let me tell you something, I think that she's a very smart person. I don't think that she's dumb.
You think she's got a shot at attaining the governor's seat? You think she'll make it to the primary?
No, I don't. I don't see that happening. I don't think that she has. I think she has a lot of power concentrated up in your area. I think there's a lot of people down here who don't know jack about her, don't care to know jack about her, right? I think it would be harder for her. And, let's just face it. I still think that, and I don't think she would want to hear this, but we still got a lot of misogyny in, both parties. And, so, I think
and not
that's
necessarily from the citizens. I think a lot of and I don't think this, I know this because you and I have been a part of it. I think a lot of the male figures in the Republican Party don't want her at the top.
No, they don't. And I mean, it could be her political values or her beliefs. I don't know. But ultimately, she stood right in there. And so I can respect anybody for standing right in there, facing their enemies every single day, and even in their own caucus, right? And so I can respect anybody. Doesn't mean I agree with her. Don't mean I want to hang out and drink a beer with her.
There's a lot of people listening to you right now who are looking out the window to see if hell's frozen over.
I know, right? Well, I said I wouldn't want to drink. I don't think I'd drink a beer, but you know what? I might just to hear. You see, the thing that I enjoy about this madness that we find ourselves in now is I enjoy being challenged a lot more than people would give me credit for. I enjoy.
Oh, I agree.
The cat and mouse, and so
because at the end of the day, something positive will come out of it.
That's exactly right. And even if it is, hey, I'm glad we finally talked and we know that we hate each other.
Right.
Like we've established that we'd never be able to work together. Hey, that's better than, anything else. So Savannah, I don't see it happening for her. Unfortunately, I think that she's kind of made herself just look like one of those pick-me girls that's just hanging out with these alpha males, that might play well to some people, but I don't think it plays well to the overall Kentucky.
I would agree with that. And I look at, her group of friends, Felicia Rayborn, Representative T.J. Roberts, and nobody knows this for certain, but from all appearances, it just seems that Representative Roberts was groomed by these folks
Yeah,
to
sure.
end up in this position. And, he fought a campaign against former Representative Ed Massey, who has a lengthy legal career and career in public education, especially at the national level. And Roberts blew him out of the water. And I credit a lot of that to the assistance from Maddox and Rand Paul and Thomas Massey. And
Well, yeah.
it just
Well, let me
seems to
tell
me
you
like that's just a solid block. It's going to take a lot to defeat that block.
It is. Well, and I'll tell you why. The Republican Party, or at least fringes of the Republican Party, figured out a lot faster that if they raise them up, that they'll just have a constant, conveyor belt of candidates, right? I mean, TJ's been on the fringe of Kentucky politics since we started 120. He's been one of my nemesis. He makes a great villain in my story. I make a great villain in his. I've gone up against him and his Cooper Rider buddies and all those folks multiple times. My hat's off to them for, sticking around, but, it's one of those things. We've had our battles. The thing is that he has been, you're exactly right. He was anointed. TJ Roberts don't have two sticks to rub together.
It's funny you mentioned that. When Alexandra Owensby ran against Thomas Massey, a campaign I was heavily involved in for a period of time. At the same time, he was assisting Thomas Massey in trying to promote himself as this public figure in politics. He was also advertising that he had a GoFundMe up to try to get his car fixed.
That's right. Any other America,
cannon.
this would be would be a rags to riches story, right?
Right.
But right now, it's almost terrifying, because, like I said, I guess he's found the American dream, and good for him. Again, what does it cost your soul? It's up to him when he hits the pearly gates. He's got to have that discussion. I don't, and I'm glad.
Well, he's going to have to answer for his defense of the gun, no matter what. Again, we've talked about this for a month now. He's got these bills to remove concealed carry zones throughout the Commonwealth. That includes public schools. He's Trump, 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 gun, gun, gun. And don't get me wrong, I love my guns, hunting, carry it for protection. But I just don't see the positive, the upside in allowing an 18-year-old to carry a gun. And I certainly don't see the upside in having schools be open to folks to bring their weapons in. I think that's an asinine thought, and I think it's very dangerous.
Well, I'll tell you, it is dangerous because, we as much as we try, there's a huge issue with school safety, and we're raising an entire generation of kids who have always done drills on what would happen if their classmate was shot. What would they use as a tourniquet? And you don't think about that until you ask your child about that. I would suggest to TJ Roberts that he sit down with a bunch of high school kids and ask them how they felt since kindergarten, having to figure out how to barricade a door. That would be the first thing I would ask. But let me remind you of this. Mr. Roberts is the exact same person that posted a meme saying that it didn't matter how many kids were dead as long as he could keep his gun. And, when you cannot deal with that kind of thinking, right? This is a man who will fight to the death for his Second Amendment rights and then trample all over your Fourth Amendment rights.
Even if it meant your child would end up a murder victim.
That's exactly right. And see, a lot of times people have to have it happen to them for them to give a damn, and that's a problem, right? Because I don't want to take that chance with my kid, and I don't think anybody else does too. Anybody else, and let me be very clear before people start jumping up and down about Nema being a big progressive liberal, all this other stuff. I'm from the 606. Nema has guns in her house. Nema has grown up with guns. Nema's not afraid of guns. Nema's not a gun, all those things. But Nema knows the boundaries of a gun, and Nema knows exactly that my gun should be in a lockbox. And Nema knows that, these are the things. I'm asking for people to use some common sense, and and just some basic human dignity for other people, right? And just to think about it for a second. And plus, let's think about this. There's probably some teachers that are a hell of a shot.
Yes,
I'm not gonna lie. I know some teachers, and I'm telling you that there's some of them that are a hell of a shot. However, when are we going to stop the fix me teacher syndrome?
Yeah.
Fix it teacher? When are we going to say enough is enough? We can't keep pushing all of these problems into our public schools and then blame our public schools for not being able to highly function for what they're supposed to be doing, which is educating our kids, right?
And I've said it a million times.
So when you make them a school nurse,
the money is there to add the physical security to our schools. The legislature just doesn't want to use that money for that purpose. They'd rather use it for, their special projects. But never in our state house has defending the student been a priority when it comes to physical security. Because out of a $30 billion budget, we can't find $200 million.
Well, yeah, and our answer is let's put more guns in the schools. That's not how we fix this problem, but we can't keep asking our educators, our public educators, and our paras and our staff, our special ed paras. God bless them, right? We cannot keep asking these folks to be everything every time. And also educate these kids. We've got to have some help. That comes in with our community. That's what we're doing with AFT. We're trying to reach out to our community and say, no, we really need you, not just for like a transactional ally thing, but we really need you. We need help. We have to be able to admit it. That's the first step. We have to be able to admit we can't do it and it's not working anymore. But let me be clear. It is working for some people. It's not working for all people. And the answer is not to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
The answer is not to send money to private schools that are just going to continue to perpetuate another system, right? We don't need to be trying to fix and patch up 4 different systems. What we need to do is we need to look at what we've done as adults with any sort of political influence, power, or position. What have we done to make our kids the most successful and our teachers the most successful? Because making them be a school nurse and a mental health specialist and a security guard, that's right. All of those things, these things are not working. No. They're just not working. And so until we get some courage inside the halls of Frankfort that say, listen, teachers aren't the enemy. This is what we have to do. But this is all political. This is why teachers don't get paid what they need to get paid. They're mad. They're mad because we walked out.
Well, and for 40 years, the legislature hasn't been able to fix the school system as it is. So what makes anybody think they can do it now? That's the bottom line. Remove politics from education.
Well, absolutely. It should never be in there. And unfortunately, I tell people all the time when they're talking about all those teachers' unions, here's what I always say. Those are teachers, dude. And the only reason that they have a union is the same reason that everybody else seeks a union. And that is to have a voice in their own workplace and to affect those changes. The problem is that teachers are the last ones to be asked. Teachers, paraeducators, all of those folks, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, they are the last person to be asked, and they do the job. We saw it in Louisville with the transportation issues. Rank and file workers were saying this won't work, and guess what? No one listened.
Do you know why? And I know you know this. I know you know this because you've been on the inside and you've seen it. I've seen it on the inside as an employee and as a student, believe it or not. The reason why we're failing is because they are treating education as a business. From the top to the bottom, it's treated as a business. It started in the early to mid-'90s when districts were evaluating their resources when it came to bus transportation. And instead of having 4 stops on one street, which was safe for the students, everybody had to walk to the nearest stop sign. They may have been at a stop that had a covered shelter, so they didn't have to stand in the rain, but it saved the school district 13 cents on diesel fuel, so they had to walk to a stop sign. That's when it started going south. We treat it as a business. You're no longer an educator. You're an employee. You're no longer a student. You get us SEEK funding. It's a business.
That's right. Yeah, and you know, I've said this a long time. There have been a lot of people who've made a lot of money off of saying they're going to fix something, and it's just maybe, you know, a tenth of a point, and then it goes back. You know, we have to ask ourselves, and we have to be courageous enough to be bold in the decisions that we make moving forward. We've been given a gift in this state by the voters of this state by rejecting Amendment 2. And we have to do
overwhelmingly,
better.
By the way.
Yes, and we have to do better and return that favor. We have to start doing it today.
I don't think that's going to happen until 3 or 4 things happen. The first being term limits in the legislative branch. 2, a big campaign promise of mine was removing legislative pensions. Public service should be something that you aspire to contribute to. It should not be a career. We should not be paying pensions to legislators. That was not the purpose of government. And then the other thing, again, like I said, is get business out of education, get politics out of education. And the final thing I would add to that, we need protections so that our educators can speak out.
Absolutely.
If these folks are entrusted with our children day in and day out, there is no reason they should not be able to speak out against injustices towards our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I don't know. I just always believe that a genuine, honest conversation can always bring about so much change and so much movement. But the hardest part is getting the honest, genuine conversation anymore. Everybody's decided that everybody's an enemy.
Well,
and
so I think I'm just going to start writing in names on ballots. Maybe I'll just write in Brewer for the Senate seat. Who knows?
No, I'm going to just stay right where I'm at. I'm going to stay being a tick underneath, you know, a big fat tick on a big fat lazy dog. I'm going to, you know, embed my head. I'm going to be, you know, calling people to gnash their teeth at midnight. I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. I just hope that people will at least listen to some of you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with anything I said.
Right.
But I do hope that eventually we'll get to a point where we can have these legitimate conversations and really, and not just talk, but actually take action and have that change come across, because Kentucky deserves it. Kentuckians deserve it. Our kids sure as hell deserve it. And, you know, we just got to get past ourselves, brother. But I'm just still going to be here, you know, as much as people hate it, as, you know, until.
Oh, I'm well aware. And we got a
I ain't
minute
got nothing else
left
going on.
But I want to ask you about this. Representative T.J. Roberts has teased that on March 22nd, he has some massive news, and he's not old enough to run for Senate. He's not old enough to run for anything other than where he's at currently. What do you think he's teasing? What is old TJ or young TJ have up his sleeve?
You know, I never try to fathom the mind of T.J. Roberts. I find that's the best possible scenario, and it helps me sleep better at night. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, I guess whatever the young lad, you know, sets his eye on, I mean, he's got the money behind him. So, you know, who knows what he's going to do. You know, I've been watching Massey and Trump, you know, go at it. And, you know, listen, I don't get the allure of Thomas Massey. I never have. I don't think he holds a gun right. That's just me.
You noticed that too.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I do think there's obviously, you know, every so often now, him and Rand Paul will come up and do something. And I'm like, you know, they're right.
Yeah.
You know, I think Rand Paul's dead right about the tariffs.
I would agree.
Dead right.
I would agree.
And, you know, I don't agree with him on nothing, but he's dead right. And I would tell him to his face, he's dead right. So, I think that's the thing. I think it's going to be interesting how things shake out. I think there's a new wave of young people who are excited. TJ Roberts is obviously one of them.
Do you think
And I think
Massey
that's
is going
always good.
to be replaced? Do you think that he's going to have a challenger backed by Trump? Do you think it's over for Massey?
I don't know, man. Can anybody? I don't know. I don't. Let me tell you, I don't try to even dabble in Northern Kentucky politics because I'm so confused by who's on what team on what day. With you all there in those days, I cannot even keep up with it.
Well, I think
I
Massey's on
mean,
Massey's team, and people have come close to taking his seat. Owensby did a
yeah,
respectable job, but wasn't able
yeah.
to pull it off. I think it's going to be difficult, but I'm telling you, the Trump effect, especially in this area, apparently plays well. And if a candidate comes
Really?
out with
Okay.
Trump support, I think Massey is going to be looking for a new job.
Wow. Well, I'll be interested to. I'll be watching, brother. I'll be watching. I'll be listening to hear what your take on it all is too, as the weeks unfold.
Well, I'm sure we'll see each other somewhere around Frankfurt soon, and appreciate you
Yes, I
coming
hope
on. I know
so.
we've been working on this for a while, and our schedules just
Absolutely.
are all over the place. Hopefully, we'll do it again. And
Been a lot of fun. I appreciate you asking me on and let me blather on about public education and politics. Two of my favorite things to do. So I appreciate it, and you keep doing you, brother.
that's what we do
I'm
best.
glad you're still in the game. That's right. That's right.
All right, you have a good one. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.